I came to Ashland when I married my husband, Woody Tucker, F.W. Tucker the fourth. We were married in June of '77, and lived in Doswell for a year with plans to build a second home in Doswell. But Woody's grandmother in June of '78 was infirmed, and they decided to send her to the nursing home, put her in the nursing home. They put her house at 718 South Center Street on the market. With Woody and I already owning additional land, we had no thought of moving into town, but the more we looked at the house, the more we thought, we've got to do this. So she passed away only 4 weeks later, and then we decided we needed to go ahead and buy this house and keep it in the family. We're here at 718 South Center Street, and catty corner across the tracks at 709 is where Woody's parents lived. We moved in November of '78, so we will be celebrating our 30th anniversary in the house. It is interesting in that the house is the last house on the railroad tracks that's still in the family that built it. Woody's parents lived, as I said, catty corner across the street. His father died in '94 and his mother died in 2000, and the house has changed hands twice, but and our boys were not of the age 8 years ago to consider them possibly moving into the house. But the person who bought the house from us did us a mighty kind deed, and she died very unexpectedly at a much younger age than any of us had thought she would. But we found out in her will she gave first right of refusal on the house across the street, the Tucker house across the street, to our sons. It didn't work out that way because, again, they weren't financially able or physically able to tackle a house like that. So, yes, so that's how I came to Ashland in November of '78. And having lived in Doswell for a year and a half before that, I did shop at Cross Brothers. I was told there wasn't any other place to shop. But truth be known, there was a Safeway. I was a little bit bothered initially after marrying Woody in June of '77 and shopping at Cross Brothers when Myrtle would look at things that I purchased and was astounded that little Woody was now eating broccoli. And he likes beets now. At first I found it a little intrusive and a little invasive, but quickly realized, yeah, that's kind of neat. So that's how I got here, and been here, like I said, for 30 years. Woody was born and raised.
What are Ashland's most colorful characters?
Who are Ashland's most colorful characters? Gee whiz, Woody's father, F.W. Tucker III, nicknamed Booty Tucker, has to be one of the most colorful characters of his time. There were several in that generation, and we question all the time, who's replacing them? We don't know. But certainly Joe Stiles, who is still alive at this point in time. Bob Lancaster, I would not necessarily say was a colorful character, but he was a character, and of course a renowned historian. Gee whiz. I'm sure there are more. I'm just not thinking of them right now.
Tell me some more about his father.
He was a true Southern gentleman, an excellent. I didn't think I'd get like this. Here comes Woody. Maybe he needs to. Hey, Wood, we're having the interview now. Watch out, you're on tape. Be careful what you say. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm Kimberly Dutton.
Woody Tucker, how are you?
I don't know why I just got absolutely teared up. She asked me to talk about your dad.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
I know. Anyway, you want to jump in on this?
Can I fix something first? What is Just,
I knew.
you never know.
You never know.
He was a regular visitor over here. All right. Well, Dad was a local boy, and he stayed local the whole time. I mean, he was born and raised here, went to school here. So he knew everybody that grew up in the town around the time that he was here. And, you know, as he got older, he always was a gregarious sort, but as he got older, yeah, I think he became even more so because, I mean, every day he would make the rounds, starting at crosses.
Or would you prefer?
Starting at crosses and going to the bank and going to the post office and
He was one of
several
the
occasions.
last great visitors.
Yeah, yeah.
You
he
know,
was a great
not
visitor.
he didn't kind of sort of call ahead and make an appointment to come see you, but after he did his usual rounds of Cross Brothers and the bank to get a cup of coffee where McCardle Insurance is now, and maybe one other errand, then he would have somebody he would visit each day.
Yep.
Whether
He
it
would
was
always visit somebody.
Right,
Bob
Bob.
Lancaster, Tony Grattan, whoever it might be. He was going to by the side. He just loved people. And, you know, he had a great sense of humor, and that kind of endeared him to a lot of people. He was a funny guy. He could tell a funny story. He was really interested. He was a historian all his life, always interested in history, in particular the town of Ashland.
and very
So-
concerned that Ashland history be recorded and written correctly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of what I know about the town now comes directly from him.
And all
And,
of Roseanne's book was just so much him. If you've ever looked at Roseanne's book, right? He died on January 25th, 94, and Roseanne's book was probably only a couple of weeks away from being published. And within an hour or so of Booty's death, of course, she had heard about it, and she came by the house and just booed and just said, you know, he never got to see it. And she said, I never could have done it without him.
But you know, that reminds me, I'll have to tell that story.
I was hoping you would. I think it's a fine story.
The house, the McMurdo house right across the street here, Stonewall Jackson spent the night there on his way to what was turned out to be the 7 Days battles around Richmond in June of '62. So my father was always proud of that fact and would point it out to whoever was, you know, interested in hearing about it. So one day we had a chemical spill. Truck turned over on one of the streets here behind us, and it was a chemical spill. And so
It was
all
the early 80s, 1980s.
yeah,
or so.
probably all the news people were out from Richmond. You know, Channel 6, Channel 12, Channel 8. So there was one standing right here on the corner of McMurdo and Center. One of the newsmen, I don't remember what station he was from, but anyway, my father went over there to talk to him. And so he, in the course of the conversation, he pointed at the McMurdo house and he said, I bet you didn't know that Jackson spent the night there, did you? And the reporter says, no, I didn't. Which one, Jesse or Michael?
Not how.
Well, I thought my father was going to have a stroke. But he laughed about that later and told that story time and again.
He was also walking. He would be ready for church on Sunday mornings before Woody's mom, Almerle Tucker, and would take walks up and down the street. And there was a cute little Randolph-Macon girl who had lost her dog. She was probably 19, 20 years old. And Evermore walking up and down the street calling for the dog, and Booty walked over and walked with her a little bit and found out her story. And they walked by what's called the Constable House here on Center Street, which is now the home of the Beards. It's a red-sided house, painted red. And when they got to walking by that house, Booty, who was at that point probably 68, 70 years old,
At least.
pointed to the house and said, I bet you didn't know I grew up in that house. And she goes, oh my goodness. She said, no, I didn't know that house was that old. which at that point he had turned around and looked at her and said, "And you can go find your own damn dog," and walked on across the street and sat back down in his own living room.
But very musically inclined. He played in the band in college, and his father, who had started the Tucker Whiteman Minstrels here in Ashland in the 19-teens, he performed in that show fairly regularly once he got old enough to do so, singing and playing in the band. So always loved music.
Do you know of any other colorful characters?
Any other colorful characters? Lord.
I mentioned Bob Lancaster, of course, Joe Stiles.
Yeah, Joe certainly ranks as one, and fortunately Joe is still with us. But we had people like Evelyn and Doc Hughes. Doc, who ran the Hughes Pharmacy up here.
Tell me a story
and
about Evelyn going to see his corpse.
And yes, Doc, his name was Thomas Watkins Liggins Hughes. And so he died. And so Evelyn went over to the funeral home, which was just a block away from where she lived at the time, Crude and Clayton. And so she was walking over and looking down at the corpse, and they walked up to her and said, "Well, Evelyn, how do you think Watkins looks?" And she said, "I think he looks dead." And then you had Ellen MacDuff Weems down the street. They were just great characters. You just never knew exactly what they were going to do. Mac was the treasurer of the county.
Also directly next door to us, and we tend to think of characters who were born, reared, and died here. Buster Lipsey, who lived next door to us. Buster came here in the early 60s.
Yep.
And established Ashland Furniture Company.
Which is where the caboose is now,
Yeah.
the wine shop.
And also the one-story building that McKinney owns, the freestanding one-story building by the parking lot. Buster built that as part of another showroom for the furniture. He was an amazing character. He wasn't just a colorful character. He was probably one of the most astute businessmen in Ashland. Has to have been one of the top 10 in the history of Ashland as far as coming in, finding a niche. He was Jewish, and there were no Jewish people in Ashland for forever. I mean, they're just,
none that we knew.
None that I know. I mean, but just he was just an outstanding member of the community. Had a huge heart, and again, another one just with just a funny sense of humor. But just a delightful man.
Yeah.
Vaughn Palmore. I mean, another colorful character.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them about the postcard. They have to tell the story about the postcard between your father and Vaughn. I mean, they grew up, Woody's father and Vaughn, as children, and we came across in some of Woody's father's World War II stuff. You could have, the Army would give you like an address page. It wasn't, couldn't even call it a booklet, but you could write down all your buddies' names and their addresses in the military. And I just think it was so funny that, it was Vaughn and somebody else. I can't remember, but I know.
Only one Joe in there?
I mean, and these were, they were 18, 19, 20 years old, and then they were in each other's weddings, and then they went to each other's children's weddings and grandchildren's, they stayed together, but to find from 1941 or 42 the address for Vaughn. So he sends Vaughn.
So he sends Vaughn a postcard.
Or Vaughn sent, he sent Vaughn.
Yeah, he sent Vaughn, and I don't know where Dad was stationed at the time, but both were in the Army. And and in the front of the postcard was this picture of this topless native girl from Hawaii, or I don't know where, one of the islands, South Pacific Islands, I think. And so Dad sent it to Vaughn Palmer and wrote on the back of the card, "Don't she have big feet?" Yeah, I tell you.
But just, I just find it fascinating, the relationships that have, stood the test of time. People just don't seem to leave Ashland.
No, they
Or
didn't.
not on purpose.
They didn't back then. That's for sure. But he grew up here in this house, and you know, this was home to him and home to me in a lot of ways when I was growing up.
Which, of course, we found numerous. The house was built and they moved in, but they didn't paper or paint for 2 years. The idea was to let the plaster walls season, let them go through a couple of winters and summers and expand and contract. And Booty's mother, Woody's grandmother, allowed Booty and his sister to write on the walls. I just find that fascinating that this prim and proper Southern woman in 1921 said, just go for it, right on the walls. I don't care, it's going to get painted or papered. Mostly papered, because when Woody and I moved in '78, in every room that we have taken paper off of, we have found
All
their
kinds of
drawings.
pictures and writing.
In what was Booty's room as a child, in the back, there's a pirate ship on the wall. I mean, I'm peeling wallpaper, and it is. It's a little man at a pirate ship, just a pencil drawing. And Woody's dad was still alive at this time, and he came over and he signed it, and we literally just put a frame with glass and nailed it right into the wall. But various other things, and then maybe 10 years after that, she must have changed wallpaper in the hall because we found all of his fraternity Greek letters.
Yeah, from his
out
college
there.
days in the 30s.
But yeah, no, Booty was a character, and
He told me a story one time. He was in the volunteer fire department when he was young and in college, and said he was in the middle of town, I guess where 54 crosses the tracks, the main intersection, and says, here comes the fire engine tearing out of the firehouse. So they stopped right at that intersection. He jumped on the fire engine, going to the fire, and it came right to his house. His house was the one that was on fire. At that time, the steam engines that went through here, the cinders that came out of the smokestacks, started a lot of fires in this town. And some of the cinders had gotten into the attic of this house and had caught it on fire. As a matter of fact, it was so bad back then, until the steam engines were done away with and diesel took their place, that women walking their babies down the street in baby carriages would have to cover them with a blanket. Otherwise, they get covered with ash and soot and cinders and all kinds of terrible stuff.
every attic along the railroad tracks, you can to this day in 2008
See the evidence of the soot.
bang on the, what do I want to call it?
Rafters.
The rafters, and just see it lightly sift down. Just, yep, it might be gone, but it's not forgotten. All right, got another one for us?
How else has having the railroad so close to your house affected your life?
Because you grew up,
Well,
you feel that one.
Yeah, I grew up across the street and now live here. So I've lived here all my life. You know, it's been a great thing for me. It really has. I remember as a kid, I was 10 or 11, I guess. Or really before then, but certainly when I was 10, 11, 12. The trains would stop out here every Saturday morning, and they would do some kind of maintenance work. And in that day and time, you still had cabooses on the end of the train, so a caboose would stop very close, if not right in front of the house, very close to the house. So my buddy and I would get out and play on the caboose all day long. We just thought that was the neatest thing in the world. So, you know, it's just been it's a part of your life. You really don't even notice it most of the time. We don't notice when trains go through. We don't. People want to know, well, how many trains go through at night? We don't have any idea because we really don't hear them because you get so used to them. On the negative side of it, I lost a dog when I was a child, and we've lost two since we've lived in this house on the railroad tracks. You know, they haven't been killed by the cars, but 3 of them have been killed by the train. So, you know, it happens.
As I said earlier, we moved into this house in November of '78, so that was my first experience with living on the tracks. And I don't remember it being an issue at all. But I do remember that January I was teaching school in Richmond City at the time, and there was a prediction of snow, and of course teachers, more so than students, get excited about those kinds of predictions. But I was really restless that night and could not figure out why. And we got up the next morning. There was 6 inches of snow on the rails, so a train hadn't been through for
several
probably
hours.
8, 9 hours or whatever. No train had been through because you do get into a rhythm. You know, certain trains coming by at certain times. Of course, it wasn't fun. What was it, 3 years ago when the town of Ashland forgot to request quiet zone status, and every single train that went through blew at every single crossing for 3 months?
Couple weeks.
Oh, I thought it was months. It just
I
seemed
don't,
like
well,
months.
yeah, it just seemed like.
But no, the train it's absolutely wonderful. I know that some areas, we've taken the train from Richmond to New Haven, Connecticut, and except for about a little 5-minute segment in Philadelphia along the Schuylkill River, most trains run through, well, I mean, I guess there's a nice area in Fredericksburg, I shouldn't. Most trains end up running through armpits of America. And this is just like an oasis, you know. You tell people live on the tracks, and somebody in Kansas, you know, might have a different view of where you live or what you do or whatever.
But you know, when
It's
I was growing up, you literally played on the tracks. You know, it was a playground. We would throw balls. We would run up and down the track. We'd balance ourselves on the track and see how far we could run before we fell off. And of course, the ever fun pastime of putting pennies on the track and letting the train squash them. You know. So yeah, I spent quite a time out there.
You want to guarantee that a train won't come, though. Set up a camera. Set up a camera, or have a guest come and say, oh, they come by all the time.
Yeah.
Woody's mom and I used to have we used to gather up the rocks and make a little pathway up towards her end, you know, so that you didn't have to go up the gully, down the gully, up the gully to get across the tracks to each other's
Yeah,
house.
made a little bridge.
A little bridge, yeah. So, next.
Have any interesting characters stepped off the train?
The station.
The one just recently, next door with Buddha and Jen.
Oh yeah, you'll have to tell them that story because
Well,
I'm not sure I
I'm not
remember all of it.
positive I remember all of it either, but this was just 2 months ago, 3
Yeah.
months ago. Our next door neighbors were out one morning about 9 o'clock in the morning, and two, what were they, about 12, 13-year-olds?
I think they were.
Were just looking around. It was a school day, whatever. Anyway, after about 3 hours, the story ended up that they had hopped. They wanted to know where they were and how close to New Jersey were they, or something like that. And our neighbor Buddha Morrison is saying, you're not real close. They had hopped a train in Philly,
I thought it was Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah. South Philly, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere or another. And just kind of on a lark, hopped a train. And obviously didn't understand north and south. And they got off here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the train had slowed. And it was just the most bizarre thing. They didn't have a dime on them. They didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have anything. So eventually the police were called just to help with them. And our neighbors, just as Ashlanders would, gave them $20 for a nice breakfast. And I think the town or the police just put them back on in fact, they even wanted to know when the next northbound train was coming. I think they were just going to try to, without letting anybody know, just slip back on another one. But of course, two of the saddest train stories was the fellow who worked for the Herald Progress. The Herald Progress at that time was on the west side of the tracks, by Ashland, next to Home Aids and where
Across from
Caroline
Town
Threads,
Hall.
across from Town Hall. And the fellow went over to Cross Brothers on his lunchtime to grab some nabs or something to eat. And the train was going through town, but going incredibly slow, very, very, very slow. And he decided to crawl up under it to get back to work, and had both legs severed.
Mhm.
And the other one was the Randolph-Macon student, who, I don't know, maybe you all hear about this during freshman orientation now, but she obviously had imbibed a bit and decided she wanted the thrill of touching a moving train, and not understanding that the width of trains vary. I mean, the width of the cars vary, you know, not tremendously, but just enough that when she went out to touch it, the next car came and, you know, ripped the arm right off. They're just
Yeah, when
sense
I was
of immortality at your age.
when I was a child, I know Randolph-Macon professor was killed, Dr. Bowen.
Yes, but that wasn't his fault.
No, I said Dr. Bowen was always on time. Anywhere he went, he was always on time. He rode his bike, so he was riding his bike to school and went across the crossing, and the train hit him and killed him. And we found out later that Dr. Bowen was right on time, but the train was early. And also, well, I guess when I was when I was in my, good Lord, this must have been the 80s. So I was in my, what was I in the 80s?
Oh, you
My
were
40s.
just in your 20s.
My great aunt was killed just one of the crossings, next crossing up, as a matter of fact, at the Myrtle Street crossing, trying to cross it in her car, and the train hit her and killed
Well,
her.
the car got stuck and the gate came down.
Yeah, so you know there are a lot of sad stories with the railroad too, but overall it's been neat growing up on the tracks. And still living
Well,
on the
I
tracks.
think of your father. Remember, he used to always, God bless him, he would wave the Confederate flag
Yeah.
during the railroad run as people came by, and you know, it was just something that he did, you know, in his era. And but Amtrak train was going by, and the black porter flipped him the bird.
That was the last time he waved the flag.
I don't think he waved the flag anymore after that.
And-
But you know, occasionally you get to see the circus train.
Yeah.
You know, that was just such big times to yell at the kids, and of course by the time, you know, they got down there, it was too late most of the time. But having boys, the railroad track is just fascinating. You can imagine being a boy growing up.
My father's first job was stoking the stove right over here at what was called the Britton House. Doesn't stand anymore, but it's just a little shed next door where people would come. They were taking the commuters to Richmond. They would take the accommodation train every day. It was his job when he was very young to stoke the fire, get the coal fire going, and make sure it went all good.
Which he never understood. When we bought this house in '78, of course, oil was, oh my God, what was it, about 50 cents a gallon or
probably.
something?
Terrible.
No, it
It
was
was terrible.
horrible. And at the rage were wood stoves in the '70s. Everybody, you know, was you had a mama bear or a papa bear or a baby bear wood stove, and you know, it was suggested we put a wood stove in there, or somebody suggested it. And Woody's dad, for the life of him, he just couldn't understand why people wanted to go back to chopping wood. No matter what the price was, you had the convenience of an oil furnace and the idea of
either coal or
putting
wood.
coal, or, you know, because that fireplace really only is for coal. Just didn't, you know, couldn't fathom. Well, a lot of things he couldn't. He had some a hospital stay for some cardiac problems, and I had just Campbell at that time, I guess, who was still in a car seat, and said, you know, I would run him around town and do errands. And when we went to the bank, I went to the drive-through window. How old was he then? He was retired. He was, again, late 60s. He had never been to a drive-through window at a bank before and couldn't understand why I wanted to do that. And I had to explain, you know, what's a little easier than trying to schlep the kid out of the car seat, walk in there, hope that they don't embarrass the hell out of you, and then get back into the car again and put him back in. His whole idea of going to a bank was to visit.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
one of the
this-
late,
this-
he didn't understand that you didn't want to go in and spend some time seeing how her tomatoes were growing, or how's that little baby you had last year, or
When McDonald's came to Ashland for the first time
this is
in
too funny.
either the 70s or the early 80s, my mother and father went to McDonald's, and they went in and they sat down at a table. And when a waitress didn't come over to take their order, he got mad and got up and walked out and never went back to McDonald's the rest of his life.
That's the worst service he'd ever had. Isn't
Yeah,
that
but you know,
funny?
you talk about characters, and I need to mention Granddaddy, his father, who built this house, and he was Floyd Tucker Jr., called Captain Tucker. He really was quite a guy. He was very big in this community, did a lot for this community, and the community meant a lot to him. But at an early age, he left home to join the Army, really before he was old enough to enlist. He lied about his age. And when found out that he didn't like Army life, he wrote his father to please come and swear that he was underage and take him home. And his father wrote him back and said he was in such a hurry to join up, he could just go ahead and stay there and complete the terms of his enlistment, which he did. He went to Cuba right after the Spanish-American War and was there for a while. Then came back here, and you know, he was quite active in the town. He along with John Whiteman, formed the Tucker Whiteman Minstrel Show, which played here annually, and which was a big hit here in Ashland back at that time. He was a captain in the militia, which was in the National Guard at the time. A captain of the Hannibal Grays, which was outfit during World War I. A National Guard outfit. During World War II, he was Director of Civil Defense for the county, and then had been on the town council for years, and was mayor not long before his death in '54. He formed the first Boy Scout troop here in town. Really, was the first troop in the state.
It's troop number one.
Troop number one, yeah.
For the state of Virginia.
So you know, he was just quite a guy, and very popular, and very talented and able and capable of doing a lot of things. So, yeah. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring him up and at least give him a mention here.
How has the college influenced your lives?
Well, everybody in my family has been to Randolph-Macon College, I think. I graduated in '71. My father graduated in '37. His grandfather graduated there sometime before the turn of the century.
Your great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather. I had 3 uncles to go through there. God knows how many cousins. So you could say that Randolph-Macon has educated my family.
And on a
Very much.
contemporary note, Randolph-Macon raised our children. I couldn't have raised 2 boys without Randolph-Macon babysitters. We just lucked into some of the most wonderful Randolph-Macon girls. In fact, one is 39 years old, and we're going to her wedding in September. We still keep up. Another one is in Baltimore. But yeah, I mean, we tend to adopt them when they would come down and babysit, and you know, eventually have them over for other meals and holidays if they couldn't get home for certain things or whatever. It has been a huge influence.
Yeah, I'm not sure this town would, well, it would probably exist, but it wouldn't exist like it is today had it not been for the college. I mean, I think the college really saved it after the Civil War. Actually, the town saved the college too, so it was kind of reciprocal. But had the college not been here, certainly we wouldn't have the town that we have today. I mean, all the activities that go on that town citizens enjoy and participate in, the facilities at the college that the town residents use and go to. Well, you've got things like the Brock Center. I mean, not the Brock Center, but Blackwell Auditorium, where the Ashland Variety Show is held. We've got the grounds where the Strawberry Fair is every year. You've got a lot of people that use the Brock Center. I mean, there are just a number of things that the college does, or at least makes available to the town residents, that, you know, are marvelous. And I don't know what we'd do without the college, frankly.
You don't have to read. Woody gets AARP magazine, and you don't have to read many of those issues to see that when they, where to retire. And obviously you want to retire near your family or whatever, but if you had some choices, one of the first choices, even AARP recommends, is a college town. That it offers great entertainment for you, whether you want to audit a class, do an elder hostel program through the college, or just be on their list to do events that are either free or at a very good price. The different activities, entertainment, and all that they...
The sports, the games, the football and the basketball games, my goodness. An awful lot of local people go to those who never went to Randolph-Macon or had kids that went to Randolph-Macon. But they're just fun things to go to.
Well, it is, and you certainly take pride in those teams. I love to think, through Barclay DuPriest at the college, we have, good Lord, we must have Randolph-Macon t-shirts in 40 of the 50 states. And we've probably personally delivered to 20 of those states whenever we go to see somebody or whatever, we take them Randolph-Macon gear. And always, in fact, the girl that we're going to her wedding in the end of September, she was in the Peace Corps for a couple of years and took t-shirts to some of her students over there. There's a pride, in living down the street from Randolph-Macon. And obviously a pride in that my husband graduated from there, my father-in-law graduated from there, my grandfather-in-law graduated from there, and various uncles or whatever. But it is your hometown school. You may have your own school, where you are an alum or whatever, but you always support the hometown school. And I only wish that some of the students appreciated townies more, and realized that he was once where you were, and that type thing.
How do you think students can change that?
I'm not sure.
Can I get you anything?
You want some more water?
I'm good.
You all right?
And are you 21? Oh, good. That's all right. Good. I have to share my wine. I ran an after-school business with a neighbor, and we also employed Randolph-Macon students in an after-school. They would work from 3 to 6, 2 or 3 days a week or whatever, and what Randolph-Macon student couldn't do that. I'm just not sure that we're all utilizing them as much. I used the hell out of them in the 80s. I really did. I mean, between the business and here, and I don't think this current generation of, new parents, I'm saying anybody from birth to 10 years old, they have children that age, that they see that as good a resource, whether it's not just, and I don't mean to be sexist with the babysitting, whether it's house sitting, whether it's, putting stuff out there that they rely on local high school students or whatever. And I'm not real sure certainly some, I know the restaurant here employs Randolph-Macon students. I just don't know that, I'm not positive the town and college relationship is necessarily, I'm talking citizens of the town with the college, as good as it was maybe 20 years ago. When I think, like I said, I used the hell out of it. We did, as far as going, getting students at the college to work at after school or babysit or whatever. Everybody was always using Randolph-Macon students for everything from bartending to babysitting to house sitting to whatever. And I just don't know that I see that anymore. I mean, we happen to use a lot of the Randolph-Macon basketball team. The Macon coach goes to Woody's church, and those girls, work in the nursery. But I mean, that's kind of a funneling, but they're not being solicited.
That could be true. I'm not sure. I've noticed that one way or the other. But.
Well, I look at our neighbors who have small kids who aren't using, who are constantly going through, can't find babysitters, but they're not necessarily looking up there or promoting.
Well, I think
that.
one thing also though, we had a connection with the college, so it was kind of a natural.
Not when I was
A
looking
natural
for
resource.
somebody to work at after school.
Yeah, okay.
Well, seriously. I
You
know.
want to get an argument on here?
No, well, I'm serious.
An oral history argument between man and wife.
Getting Jane had nothing to do with, your connections or your lineage.
Well, no, you're exactly right. But just because we had dealt with the college before, that's where you went.
What?
I mean, just because we had dealt with them before and we'd gotten people from there before, that's what you used.
No, we put a sign up and advertised.
Okay.
No, we did. We did. When we were starting our after school, we literally just posted a sign up there and,
I'm
asked
sure
for help.
you're exactly right on.
Go, Kim.
How has the college changed over the years?
Oh, geez, I don't know. It's well, I think some of what Susan said, kind of shows. It used to be far more of a local school than it is now. And in the earlier days, and certainly in my youth and in my father's time, people weren't going to Richmond and everywhere whenever they felt like it. I mean, what you did here in town, or you didn't do anything, or you stayed on campus. And I think certainly the connection between town and college was much closer then, simply for the fact that Ashland was it. And I think that certainly has changed over the years, with everybody having a car and going wherever they want, whenever they want.
Well, on a little different perspective, I went to school in Harrisonburg and Madison College at the time, and came up here numerous times during my
James
4
Madison
years.
was still teaching there.
Anyway, would come up here on various weekends, seeing a guy from high school. Every single weekend there was a band.
Mm-hmm.
At least one, if not two, or maybe more fraternities
Right.
had bands. The entertainment was on campus. Of course, the drinking on campus was everywhere.
Yeah,
That
it was much more liberal back then.
there wasn't the concern in the 60s and the 70s with drinking and well, you didn't drive. I mean, you walked wherever you went. I mean, you literally, entertainment was there on the weekends. And it was funny because you didn't think of Randolph-Macon as a suitcase school. Madison was. How things have changed. If you can't find something to do at JMU on a weekend, you're just not looking hard enough. But I mean, yeah, if it wasn't, there were certain weekends, of course, everybody packed up a bag at Randolph-Macon and left. But it was I mean, there were bands, there was always, the football, the only, you left occasionally to have to go home to see mom and dad, or if Aunt and Sydney was away that year or whatever. But, Randolph-Macon was where it was at. I mean, you didn't go to Richmond for entertainment.
What kind of organizations do you belong to now?
Well, I certainly. Oh yeah, how did you know about the women's club? Damn, you do some research. God,
Ginger
you're
Young.
good. Oh, Ginger, what a sweetie. I really like Ginger. Is she gonna listen to this? Oh, Ginger, I really like you. In fact, she's gonna help me with my paper next year. Yes, the Women's Club of Ashland. There's nothing like it. Have you heard anything about? I mean, it is 1896. It is probably the most selfish thing I do, is to every Tuesday afternoon from the 1st of October to the end of April sit there and listen to somebody else. It's a fascinating organization. I volunteer every Wednesday morning for Virginia Voice, which is the radio station for the blind for the state of Virginia. I read for a little over an hour and Southern Living and Richmond Magazine. Regretfully, I used to always read National Enquirer, but they're picking that up from somebody in Charlottesville now. But that certainly just very much have always been involved in the town as far as the Hanover Arts and Activities Center. I was on their board for 9 years and president for 4 of those years. Ashland 150. Pooey on the person who isn't involved with that. It's just an incredible thing that really came at the 11th hour to suddenly go, oh my God, we're 150. And I'm not sure it started much before September of last year. And so the yearbook project has been huge for that. Woody's extremely active with his church.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as active in town organizations as my wife is.
And I think
know
that's
that.
obvious. I think that happens a lot. Just, I didn't work outside the home. I mean, I did some things outside of the home, but I think that's the way it happens. But your history with your church is...
Yeah, with Ashland Christian Church. I've been a member there. I'm still active in the church. The
Men's Club.
The Hanover Club, which is here in town, is the second oldest men's club in the state. Chartered right after the turn of the century. And
Not as old as the Women's Club.
no, not quite as old as the women's club. That's true. Close though. So I'm active in that, and we've both been active in the Ashland Variety Show since 1985, and continue to be in one form or the other.
I know,
what
especially in 1987, where how dare our second born decide to come into the world Monday of the show. I'm not sure we'll ever quite forgive him for that. But yeah, very active in that kind of thing. It's fun to see the newcomers come along, and some of their talents are incredible. Their energy, their enthusiasm is beyond belief. And we are so happy to pass the baton to them.
Tell me some more about your church involvement.
About my church involvement. Well, I've been a member all my life. I am now an elder.
Oh, come on, go back to...
Which in a way is a scary thing.
Go back to your favorite Bible, or Dorothy Jones, I'm sure you've heard of through this. She's certainly not here any longer for you to do, but what Dorothy Jones used to quote, your favorite Bible verse.
Yeah, during the Sunday school presentation in the church one Sunday morning, we all had Bible verses we would have to recite. And I don't remember what particular one I had that day. And when I stood up to say it, I didn't remember it then either, because looking at all those people scared me to death. But I had seen a license plate on my way to church that morning, a Virginia license plate. So when it came my time to recite my verse, I stood up and said, "Keep Virginia green." That was the only thing I could think of, and I thought that was a good Bible verse as any, But no, I'm an elder in the church. I've been a deacon on the board, so yeah, stay fairly active. Don't go as often as I should to Sunday services, but other than that, I'm still participating.
But it's been a big part of your life and of our boys'
sure,
life.
Absolutely.
Woody's dad, Booty, used to come by Sunday mornings as the boys got a little older, and would pick them up out here at 5 minutes of 10 on Sunday mornings and take them to Sunday school. And he would give them each, I guess, $1 or $2, and that they could put in the collection plate. And the boys are still certainly,
yeah, they're still active.
They're still active in the church, and not acolyte. What do they do?
They're deacons.
Deacons. Once, twice they're on monthly schedules, once, twice a year or whatever. It's an important church to them. Should they ever find a wonderful girl like their mother, they probably would get married in that church.
Could be.
I would like to think so.
What kind of events has your church done for the community?
What kind of what?
Events.
Has the church done for the community? Oh my goodness, right now, God bless them. They started this last summer. They added a huge gymnasium 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The church rents their huge gymnasium at a minimal cost to the
Y.
Ashland Y to use as a summer camp. Carol LaHaye, coach of the award-winning Randolph-Macon women's basketball team, has done various camps there. Community events, my gosh, they're involved in everything from the Race for the Cure, sponsoring teams for that, Caritas, gosh, you name it. It's certainly one of the smaller churches in Ashland.
But one of the more active.
One of the more active, and one of the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly
True.
one of the oldest, yeah.
Tell me some more about your work with being a steward.
Oh, we were talking about that earlier at the cemetery. Oh, good, you remember that word, because God knows I would have. You had asked about, yes, I started 3 years ago at the cemetery, 4 years ago at the cemetery. I had left a position at Randolph-Macon College with the classics department, not employed by the college, but employed by CAMWIS, and they needed somebody to work on a database at the cemetery. The cemetery was founded in
1862.
Thank you. I can throw my voice.
I've been throwing mine quite a bit. If you've noticed.
And flowy handwriting, bad record keeping, but to put things into a database, and eventually turned into property manager. My dad's out there. Booty and Alma Earl, Woody's parents are both out there. Your grandparents are both out there. Great grandparents are out there. And way too many friends to even start thinking and writing down about. And so it does feel like a bit of a stewardship. It feels like I'm taking care of my own out there. It's a wonderful cemetery. I know that sounds strange to probably your age group, to think of a cemetery as wonderful. The history that it's out there is, I remember coming home one day, trying to do some stuff for the database, and I said, Woody, I said, I have found the oldest dead person at Woodland. He says, oh yeah, who's that? And I said, it's Hezekiah Lee, and he died in 1858. And Woody said, well, you really did do something, Susan, because the cemetery wasn't founded till 1862. Well, that took almost 2 years to solve that mystery, working through Scanlon at the college, and eventually it was answered through the archivist. Gee whiz, what's her name?
Judy.
Lowry. No, not Lowry. Not Lowry.
Judy
Showalter.
Mm-hmm.
She's only a freshman. Imagine how good she's going to be in her senior year. Yeah, through Judy. And it turns out that Hezekiah Lee was on one of the original boards of founding Randolph-Macon in Boynton. And he died down there, and he was buried on the campus. When Randolph-Macon moved up here, the campus in Boynton was sold as a school for blacks. And we have a letter that Judy shared with us in the early 1920s that it was brought to Dr. Blackwell's attention, then president, and he was president of Randolph-Macon for eons, that Hezekiah Lee was down there among, and again, the term of the time, coloreds. And that he probably wouldn't be thrilled about that. And what can we do about this situation? his family apparently had some property at Blandford in Petersburg, but it was all full. So they moved him up here to disinterred him from Boynton and brought him up here.
Did you make any other discoveries?
Oh, tons. I mean, we have two more that predate the cemetery that apparently when 58 was going through Pennsylvania County through farms, they disinterred some people. More mysteries unsolved than solved out there because of bad record keeping. I'm trying to think of what other ones that I have.
What's the writer's name? There's something Dangerfield.
Oh, Clinton Dangerfield. Clinton Dangerfield.
Female mystery writer who lived here in town.
Who lived here in town.
And she wrote under that pen name. And wrote quite a few books, I think.
Oh, she did. And one of the biggest...
She died in the 40s or 50s, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she's right down from your mom and dad. No, it's just fascinating, the dealing with all of this. The people that I'm meeting with a man I'm not meeting, I've already met with him. He's buying a spot out there. He was on our waiting list. And his mother apparently has been very, very concerned about where she's going to be interred. This man is so incredibly excited to be able to tell his mom, he's been on the waiting list for 4 years, to tell his mom that she has a spot out there. I don't know where her husband is, but her parents are out there, and she certainly can't get near him. That I went out, he asked me today, we've identified some spaces that were for sale, and he pulled the flag up, and his brother took it or something. And he called over the weekend and asked if I could put that flag back out there, because this Friday on 4th of July, when they're up here for a family celebration, they're going to take their mother out there and just say, well, Mom, what do you think about that spot? Mm-hmm. And he asked me to put a flag there that said sold. And it went out there today, and he's going to be able to say, Mom, this is where you are. I mean, I think that is the dearest, when I was your age, I would have just gone, oh, that's so creepy. That's just kind of, but there are just neat stories.
And you might have
there.
already said this, but the cemetery started in '62, which we mentioned.
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
With the Confederate soldiers who died here in town, about 400 some are buried out there. Mm-hmm. And that's what started the cemetery in 1862.
They had no place to put them, so they asked a farm, could we use some of your land, and then a little bit more.
It was the Tinsley farm originally.
And could we use that and just add on to it, and eventually they did, which is fascinating. We still get $100 every year from the United Daughters of the Confederacy for maintenance of their section, and that's just kind of dear that still happens.
Yep.
Speaking of buried mysteries, isn't there a time capsule out there somewhere?
Oh, holy.
That is a buried mystery. Oh my God.
You have done your research, Kimberly. Good job, girl.
You would think that something that happened only 25 years ago, there'd be enough people around to remember where that thing is. But I tell you what, we've searched high and low. I've been up with a metal detector, and we've talked to people. There's not a soul that knows exactly where that time capsule is.
Sarah
So
Wright, bless her heart. We picked up Sarah,
where
and
it
she
is.
knew exactly. We have looked at pictures and have studied the fact that the town changed the approach. They don't have a front step or they added.
Right.
No, they don't have a front step So could it have been moved out this way? And we did find a real good signal one day and felt like Geraldo Rivera. Well, you don't even know who he is, do you? Anyway, ground penetrating radar.
So in 500 years, when somebody digs that up, they'll be very excited. But I don't think it's going to come out of the ground anytime soon.
Oh, when the Japanese come and take over the town,
Maybe.
or and take over CSX.
The Japanese, well, they take.
Well, I'm just thinking they're just going
Are they
to.
going to buy everything?
Yeah, buy up everything. Mm-hmm.
Tell me some more about the parades and the Strawberry Fair.
Maybe your participation?
No, we've never participated much in either. I think I was at a parade once. I'm not sure I was sober. But
You know, and
I
I
don't know
don't
much
know. I would love for this story to go into the record books about the Ashland Strawberry Fair. The Hanover Arts and Activities Center, under the leadership of Russell Bourne at the time, you know, trying to think of something to sell, something to market, you know, everybody, you know, what can we sell? And of course, weather permitting, you know, there are some times that maybe having hot chocolate would have been nice. And of course, this year it was just so desperately hot. The Hanover Arts and Activities Center bought 200 cases of strawberry jam from Rich Food, little 8-ounce jars. And Russell Bourne steamed the labels off. And we put homemade strawberry jam on them. Let's see if that makes the cut. Yeah, I mean, the Strawberry Fair has been great to the town. We were kind of the school that we never quite understood how Ashland became known for strawberries. That was started in the early 80s, and we even thought then, you know, we're known for tomatoes. You know, it was an entrepreneur who started a strawberry business outside of Ashland, not even in Ashland, who pretty much courted and schmoozed the town officials.
It's been a wonderful
and it's
thing.
been a wonderful thing for the town. It
But
really has.
we've
But
never
it's not
been-
anything that,
Yeah.
I mean, our kids love to go to it. And I guess a coming of age was when they could go by themselves, you know, that we didn't have to take them, thank God. And parades, I mean, you know, we did some of the 4th of July parades with the kids, the non-motorized things, and would always go to the Christmas parade, or, I'm sorry, the holiday parade. You're not allowed to call it Christmas parade, which was a whole lot better when it was the week before. They used to have it the week before Christmas. Not the week before Thanksgiving. But anyway, next.
What are the different entertainment options in the town?
Well, now the theater's gone.
Well, you've got the Iron Horse.
You've got the Iron Horse.
You've got a local restaurant that you can go to and hear some music.
And you've got the coffee shop, which often provides entertainment and neat people that play.
And then, of course, the college. You know, not that we, the two of us, particularly take advantage of events at Blackwell, like the Capitol Steps. We did get something the other day in the alumni magazine. There's something coming up this fall. I meant to put on the calendar. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, that kind of entertainment is, I think, and again, we're dating ourselves with this. The enjoyment is being in a neighborhood where your backyard is like a turnstile. You sit out there and you have a drink at night, or you're working in your yard, or somebody stops by and says, well, what are you doing tonight? Well, let's go ahead and get a couple of pounds of shrimp and let's just cook something up together. Or you're sitting out there at 7 o'clock at night and you've had your dinner and a neighbor walks by and they've had theirs, and you sit and talk. That's part of it.
What has changed in your neighborhood as far as physical appearance is concerned?
In this neighborhood?
Not much. Not much at all. This area looks like it did when I was a child, frankly. I mean, they're couple.
Pat Jordan's. I know, I was just gonna say.
Next door, over there. And that's it.
Yeah, I can remember when Pat Jordan, she lived at the big house here on the next corner and owned the lot in the back, sold that, built this cute little Cape Cod here.
You might want to point a little harder so I can pick it up on the microphone.
Can they get that one too?
They probably can.
I remember when that house was going up and thinking, I never thought I would hear construction sounds here. It was not a sound that
Right.
you just didn't think you would hear a house going up. Yeah, that is so much better answered by you.
I mean,
Did I do a good
I
job?
thought you did a great job.
Thanks.
I mean, I can think of on this street and the one Susan just talked about to the side of us, 3 houses. You know, the one next door, one across the
In
street.
how many years?
And beside us, you know, in 60 some years.
Well, tell you were upset, or your dad was, when Buster's house went up because your dog graveyard.
Oh, well, yeah, he buried all his dogs next door when it was a vacant lot. But he used to have tennis courts over there. But the house has been there since the early 60s, or late 50s, I guess. But yeah, so things don't change much here in this part of town. We're pretty stable.
What about changes in the businesses?
Well, Ashland is not quite as much of a destination shopping area for the people who live around here as it used to be, certainly when I was a child.
Or as it was 20 years ago.
Oh, probably not. Probably
I mean,
not.
it used to, maybe 20 years ago, it used to be the type thing that somebody could come visit and you could spend from 10 to 4 here, and, you know, certainly including
Just
lunch
looking at
and
shops
visiting
and-
shops,
Yeah, we don't
which
seem
was
to have
more
as many.
reminiscent of,
Right, the earlier days. So, you know, other than Crosses uptown now, we don't, and of course the Iron Horse restaurant, but that's not exactly a shop. We don't,
well, Caboose. I mean, you do have the Caboose and the
That's
bookstore,
true.
Bell Book and Candle, you know,
That's
stays there. And Suzanne's will always be an anchor. But yeah,
but certainly more business oriented establishments such as the real estate and the
or
insurance.
service oriented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the real estate and insurance, and you know, that's not the type of thing to generate traffic, at least pedestrian traffic and walk-in traffic and buying traffic.
But you do think of things eventually. I mean, you know, you think of the Strawberry Fair. That's kind of, there are people that come here just for that.
Oh, sure, absolutely,
You know, but-
absolutely. But you know, shopping has moved out of the old downtown area and moved across Route 1, and that's just a fact of life. But
Well, and hopefully, Ashland Main Street Association is going to be addressing a lot of those issues.
Yeah.
You know, the revitalization through the National Historic Trust, Main Street Associations are addressing some of that and how to bring that back. So,
Do you have any fond memories of any of the earlier businesses that used to be here?
well, yeah, you know, when I was young, going to school, everybody at the end of the day would go over to Hughes's drugstore. Some would go to Barnes's drugstore, and some would go to Hughes's drugstore, which were up here on Center Street. Barnes is now homemade by Suzanne's, and the Hughes's is the horse shop. Can't think of the name of it right off the
Changing
top.
Reins.
Changing Reins, exactly. And so we would
oh, I
go.
thought that was
we would
the
hang
toy-
out there.
train shop.
No, that's the old Grattan appliance.
Okay.
Anyway, we would hang out there after school and, you know, get Cokes or donuts or whatever we wanted to get and you know, socialize. And so, you know, that was very popular back then. Across the street where the ice cream shop is now was the Ashland 5 and 10 cent store. And everybody went there to buy, kids went there to buy toys, cheap toys. And they sold a lot of other stuff, just everyday usable stuff. So it was quite a popular place. We had 2 clothing stores that people bought. A lot of their clothes didn't go to Richmond; they bought them here in town. Cross Brothers has been there since 1912. So obviously the people have been shopping for their groceries in Cross Brothers for years and years and years and years. And so yeah, I remember those very fondly, and miss a lot of them. I miss the 5 and 10 cent store. You know, I miss Mead and Company, which was right up now where Sullivan's restaurant was for a short while.
When our first child was born in '83, I used to say I could do everything on my bike.
Yeah, you could.
You
I
know,
miss
right around
Cox's
here.
store. Cox's store, where the Iron Horse now is, was a department store, and literally they had everything. It was a 2-story building. It was big for its day, particularly in a town this size. because they carried everything from men's to boys to women's to girls to infants, anything in terms of clothing you could buy at Cox.
But you could on this side of Route 1, you know,
Yeah.
in 83, 84, 85,
Right.
86. You know, you had the post office, you had the grocery store.
You had a nice little clothing and antique shop there with Perkins Company one time.
Company.
Before that, you had Flowers Apparel. You had Flowers Variety, where the bike shop
Well,
was.
and
It
you used
just
to have a
closed.
liquor store.
The liquor store was on
You
this
know,
side.
right there. I mean, everything.
Painters.
Or pick up your tomato plants, or, you know, everything
You know,
could be done on
Yep,
this side
you
of
could.
Route 1.
You could.
But not anymore.
How does it feel to live in the center of the universe?
Well, I feel sorry for the people who don't. But
Good answer, hon. Good
I
answer.
try not to advertise it a lot because we want to keep them out. You know, we've got kind of
I
used to
know,
this
it's
small
awful.
town living.
It's really awful. It's just terrible. Don't come here.
Yeah, no.
It is,
Nice place to visit, but just keep on going somewhere. No, we're a little more hospitable than that. We really are. It's a great place. I mean, you know, the feeling of family and community, I don't know how you could find it any stronger anywhere else. Really don't.
and we know both of our sons. One of our sons is cooking here in the town. Don't know that he'll ever come quite back here. I think another son would move back here in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
A great compliment to want to come back. Not to
But
us. I don't mean to
particularly
say
for young
that. I
people
mean, I'm
who
just, yeah,
normally
but
wanna
it's a
get up and go
compliment to the
everywhere.
town that they want to come back at the age of 21, 24. You know, they see this as a great place they grew up with. You know, this time of year, it's still hard to not think every night that the streetlights come on, that it's streetlights rules. You know, and when the streetlights come, we have to come home. You know, that was the rule. We didn't have to go looking for them. You know, so yeah.
You said he was cooking here. Where is he cooking?
At the Iron Horse. At the Iron Horse. He's been there for 2 years. Isn't that funny? Go to the Culinary Institute of America and come back and cook at the Iron Horse. Yep.
So a lot of the graduates came back to live here, such as Woody.
I mean, you do have those that, you know, there's a whole group that swears they're just never going to come back. You know, they really want to go off. And our oldest, Campbell, was fortunate to go to the Culinary Institute. And, you know, he was up in Poughkeepsie, New York, and eventually interning in New Orleans. And, you know, when he came back, he cooked in Richmond and then came up to the Iron Horse. And our other son has been in the Coast Guard, and this is where he wants to be. I mean, he's you know, lived in California for 7 months, and you know, been on a boat and out of Portsmouth and doing all this, and click your heels 3 times, and there's no place like home. And we couldn't be happier, except to find an apartment. They don't necessarily have to live here.
Okay, for my final question, what do you think makes Ashland so special?
Oh, you got to say the people. You know, Ashland has had a history of interesting, fun people. I mean, ever since I've lived here, from the time I was old enough to remember or realize anything, Ashland has great people, and people that are fun to be with, and they're capable people, and they're exciting people, and they're dedicated people, and you know, beyond that, you've got the other things which have kind of defined the town over the years: the train, the college, and things like that. But I think the people in the neighborhood and just sense of community is just outstanding. I don't know how you could find it any better anywhere else. There may be some other towns that have as much, but I can't imagine any of them having any better.
I can't help but think, Woody, when she asked that question, and again, hopefully nothing that you can reference right now. When Woody's dad died, when Woody's mom died, when your mom died and my dad died, we brought them back here. It was, you know, just kind of the old-fashioned way to do it. When my dad died, surviving siblings and nephews from New Jersey wanted to know who catered the reception here the night before the service and after the service. And I said, what? And they said, well, who catered everything? I said, it wasn't catered. This is what we do in this town. You know, somebody dies, and the next thing you know, you're at Cross Brothers buying 2 dozen eggs, making deviled eggs, you know, to take over and just to make sure that the person has not a worry in the world. And it could be a newcomer, it could be your neighbor for 50 years. But the first thing you do is you get coolers over there, you get ice over there. Cross Brothers, you know, delivers. I have to go back to the story of when Will was born. We had Campbell, there were the 3 of us, and when I came home from the hospital, our back, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but our back door stays open all the time, and in our refrigerator were 2 of the prettiest Delmonico steaks from Cross Brothers, and it said, a note on there, these 2 are on the house, but we can't wait till you have to buy 4. You know? How do you, the day we went up to D.C. to see 4th of July fireworks, and you had gone by Crosses to look for your Bic razors or whatever razors you were using,
Yes.
the Gillette or whatever, and they didn't have any left. They didn't have any razors. We go on to D.C. to see fireworks, got back at 4 o'clock in the morning, and inside our back door was a little lunch bag size bag with Gillette razors. The owner of Crosses had gone to U-Crops and picked them up for him. I'm sorry. There are, I'm sure, wonderful little communities and subdivisions in Henrico and Chesterfield and Richmond that have this equally, but a town as a whole, I don't think so.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.